am so excited to have my sister here, my longtime friend, my buddy since baby. So we grew up in the same neighborhood. We hang out at each other's houses. We did sleepovers, double dutch, all that good stuff. And now I'm proud to have her here with me today as an LMSW out there literally changing lives. Welcome to Co-Labbin, Renee Howell. So happy to have
you. Thank you,
Welcome,
Shauna.
Renee.
Thank you, Dee. Nice to be here. Thank you on this Friday evening. Suffering from allergies, but I'm very, very happy to be in this seat tonight, and hopefully I can shed some light on your last topic, which was relationships. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's start with that, right? Because you had a huge shift in your life during COVID. And I know we wanted to talk about your own personal experience and some things that you learned out of that in your own relationship.
So starting from the relationship, or what shifted?
I would say what shifted it? Like,
The
you were
relationship.
give us like some background. How long were you in the relationship for? What were your thoughts in terms of where the relationship was going, and then what changed during COVID?
So I was in the during 2020. I was in a relationship for just about 3.5 years, and working as a medical social worker for a hospital for over 13 years. And then COVID hit, and that all changed. I was laid off, which forced everyone to be in the house. And was also forced to just look at myself and the relationship and how I showed up in that relationship. There were tons of other things that were going on at the time. My mom was actually ill and diagnosed with COPD. And so I was struggling with knowing that process of dying was happening right in front of me, along with losing a position that I had held for a long time at a hospital. So complete shift in my life was happening, and it showed up. It showed up in my relationship. It showed up in how I was dealing with the person that I was with at the time. And we ended up breaking up shortly after 2020. So it just forced me to kind of like look at how I showed up in relationships. And I just wanted to make sure that the next time around that I was going to do something different, and that I would work on taking care of myself a little better. And I enrolled my own self as a therapist in therapy. And it really, really helped me discover some things that I needed to change within myself. Were there things that he needed to change as well? Absolutely. But the most important piece for me was that I didn't take those same qualities or habits into my new relationship. So that was the relationship shift for me, which was just being able to show up in a different way.
That just set off the conversation, but it's so relevant to what we last discussed. Like, everything you just said really was the whole roadmap we talked through, and relationships shifts part 1. So you being here, Renee, and being willing to share your story is so relevant to the topic, I think, at hand, because in that conversation, we talked a lot about creating the safe space and how we shake off some of that stuff that we come in and we deal with, right? So everything that you talked about, I think, is just right on topic. So thank you for sharing that. And I am very interested to kind of hear like what that journey is like. I'm sure our listeners would love to hear as well, like get into a more sound space where you felt like you were ready for the next and best thing.
Yeah, I just think it's important that we look within a lot of times. And COVID, again, I know we're still talking about COVID like all these years later, but it really truly affected a lot of us. And those after effects still exist, especially in the work that I do, you know, daily with even women and men within relationships. People still are struggling from, you know, or feeling like they're stuck in that place still. So it's just important that we take a moment to kind of, and that is always my go-to. I mean, we can blame, continuously blame the other individual for why things did not work out. But the reality is that we all play a part in relationships. And so I think it's important for us to start with ourselves, you know, and what can we do different, you know, and maybe it's not, you don't have to break up to do it. Maybe it's being able to notice that.
How about that? Yeah.
While you're within the relationship, to be able to make those changes.
Do you feel like, and when people talk about, I'm just learning situationships, right? I just heard that term recently. I'm like, you mean like, I mean, that sounds like dating to me, the way it was described, but okay, it's called situationships, right? So do you think the way—
I feel like it's like dating with like no real commitment. That's how I interpret situationship.
But isn't dating not a commitment? It's a feeling out process. That's how
I guess it's left to interpretation of the people in it, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's levels to it. There's definitely levels to dating. It's like the beginning stages, and we've been dating for 2 years.
Or the kind of dating you did with Tori, which is like, that's gonna be my husband after the first date.
So that intentional dating, right? Right, and knowing why you're dating and why you're in it. And I know we'll get to that point about those red flags and all those things that come up within the relationship. But yeah, a lot of people date and they're just in it for the fun, you know? But when you're meeting a person, having those clear expectations on why you're in it, what are you looking for? And being very clear on that is important, because a lot of people don't have those discussions. You meet people and you just, you know, you have an expectation and their expectation is not that.
So
their
different.
Expectation is just like, oh, I just wanted to have fun.
Just
like,
kicking it.
Yeah.
Oh, you want kids? Oh, okay.
Right. Right.
No, but I feel like the people today, do they really appreciate I guess that space of like commitment, of growth? And sometimes you got to grow together in a relationship. I think once you see something you don't like, people run. I don't know. That's the sense I get of kind of like the relationships today with younger generations.
I agree. No one is in it for like from experience. And so let me be clear on that everything I'm saying tonight is from experience. And just working with people on the daily, what I'm finding is that no one wants to make a real commitment. Let me clarify that. There are people that want to make a real commitment, but no one's having that deep conversation about what it is that you're looking for. And sometimes they are, and people don't want to hear that either.
They want to hear it. They want to make it what they want to make it. And at the end of the day, let's be real, like it's not easy. You know, you bring in two people with two different experiences to the table, having to come to a mutual agreement in terms of what this is. You know, relationships and hanging in there. You talk to when I have conversations with people who have been in relationships for a long time, you know, they all say it's not easy. Like you really have to your point, Renee, be intentional about staying committed, because there will be days that you look over like, I don't think I like you too much, you know what I mean? So I think it's not easy. Anybody that, you know, if anybody has that experience where it's just been cake, you know, all the time, God bless. But I feel like, you know, people just are not, you know, staying in it because it gets hard sometimes. And in those times, they just really probably don't have the tools to know how to stick it out. So thank you so much, Renee, again, for just being here and talking to us so openly about your experiences. I think it really resonated with me because one of the things that, we talk about very openly is how we maintain that safe space in our home, in our relationship, right? And so I'm very curious to understand in that period of COVID, we all went through it. I was in a relationship during that time, so I know how it showed up for me and for us. So I'm curious, what were the symptoms that showed up with all this personal stuff going on? What actually happened in the relationship that led to its demise and you recognizing that it was time for a shift?
So I would say that I started to feel very insecure. The world was uncertain at the time.
Yes.
I was again losing my mom, and I was struggling with some other personal things as well.
Yeah.
And I can share being almost 50, I had a hysterectomy. And so
Yeah.
that was a big
Oh,
shift
wow.
in my life.
Yes.
So there were all these things that were going on. I lost my job on top of that. So there
Yeah.
were all these major events that were happening in my life. And I felt like at the time that I did not have a person that I can trust or lean on or go to. And so that made me look at the relationship and ask myself, what the hell am I doing here?
What am I doing?
I was trying my
Wow.
best through COVID to stay afloat by
Yes.
journaling, writing. I was painting. I was
Yeah.
doing yoga. I was trying to do all those things that I can do to stay afloat.
Stay healthy. Yep.
And stay healthy. But no matter what I did, those things still surface, those feelings still surface, those emotions still surface. And so the demise of the relationship was basically me trying to tell a partner that I needed him to show up a little differently and be more empathetic for me during this time. And when that didn't happen, my response, or you can say acting out, surfaced, and that pretty much was the demise of the relationship. And so
Oh my God. Okay, wait. So I'm bursting out the seams a little bit. I'm sorry. I don't like to interrupt, but I'm going to interrupt because I feel like you just threw a bomb, boom, right in the middle of some of the things we say, right? We tell our co-labbers, love yourself, blah, blah, blah. And what you're basically saying right now is you were doing all those things, but you still needed that person you were with to show up in a certain way. So basically, you can do all those things. You can be loving yourself to the fullest, but if you are in a relationship, with someone else that you're relying on for emotional support, so like as a therapist, because I look now this is a session. So as a therapist, how do we translate that, right? You are doing all the right things, for yourself. We know that we have to start with self. How does that translate to, to our listeners, to all of us here right now, when you said, but for you, that person wasn't showing up in the way you needed them to. So obviously just you loving you and you're in a relationship is not enough.
I would say I don't think I was loving myself enough,
Okay.
I was doing those things to try to ease the anxiety, ease the depression.
Gotcha.
I can honestly say, when you are looking at your mom physically changing and knowing that there's an end of life that is about to happen, you are doing everything you can to, and keep in mind,
in the middle of a global pandemic, though, like on top of, which is crazy.
Yeah,
something you never experienced before. So there's a lot of news, like things that you're feeling that you've never experienced before.
Yeah, very, very difficult. So the relationship ended by his choice, because I probably would have still been in it and still struggling. because in that moment, that's what I thought I needed. But he ended it, and which is fine because it allowed me to move forward. And look, I got the shirt on today, seek therapy.
Yes.
It allowed me to find oh my gosh, an amazing therapist who helped me to realize my worth at the time, and helped me to realize that no matter what had happened between the two of us, that I was still worthy of love and respect and kindness, which was a huge, huge thing within the relationship that I felt lacked. Like, I didn't care what we went through. My whole thing with that situation was, I don't care what we do, let's just be kind to each other. If we can't do that, then I know this shit is over. This is over. Like, if we cannot, treat each other kind, which is, I do have a list here that we can talk about later, just in regards to all the things that we should look for in a relationship. But I knew that if that couldn't happen, then there was no need to stay in it, but these are things my therapist helped me to realize, that, again, I was worthy of healthy stuff, and just helped me to see, my worth and how to show up in a relationship with confidence and understanding that like these things happen. We are all vulnerable at times, and that we can push through these difficult situationships, relationships, or whatever you want to call them.
So, I really appreciate your vulnerability here and your transparency, because I know this is not easy, right? It's not an easy conversation to have. It's not easy to retell these things. And you and I have talked about it. And one of the things you mentioned, right, is that, your partner wasn't showing up for you when you were going through, mourning the things that were happening with your mom, mourning the loss of your job, surgery, major surgery, and a global pandemic. Like, I can't even imagine the weight of all that at the same time. And then your partner as well is going through COVID with you and having their own set of issues and struggles. And here it is, you're saying, I need you to show up for me like this. And that, I think a lot of times, do you feel like your partner may not have known how to show up for you? You know what I mean? Or, I just know sometimes people don't know how to handle grief, especially a man. There's a lot of pride there, and I know you wrote an article, like a very detailed article. I got a chance to read it, but maybe you could tell us, what you were going through and a little bit about the article, because I know you really expanded on this topic.
Yeah, so absolutely. I think it's one of those things where, which I initially started talking about, is like from breakups or, situation, divorce, or whatever it may be, you want to do things differently each time around. And so that only happens with experience, I would say. And for me, I wasn't showing up the way I needed to for him, most likely, because I know for a fact that anxiety played a part in the pandemic for him. But also, yes, to your question regarding the grief piece, I do not think that he was capable of providing that type of support during that time. And even though I attempted to, tell him what was needed or spell it out and ask for certain things. If one is not capable of doing it, it's no fault to them. It's just something that they need to learn how to do. And that's the way I look at it, is I can only tell you what I need. And I cannot force someone to be able to give me these things if they don't know how to do it. To answer your question, yes, I think, and for women too, there's women and men who don't know how to provide support during difficult times within, the relationship. And so the easiest thing to do sometimes is to, run
Yes.
or let it
Yep.
go,
Yeah.
end it.
Yeah.
You can show up in all kind of ways. You can, like I said,
Right.
be unkind, and grief and anxiety and all those things show up differently for different people. And so
Yeah.
it's no fault to anyone. It's just learning how to cope with difficult times. And
Yeah.
the only way you do that is by, learning. And you usually get that from, you can go on the internet, but a therapist will help you to put that stuff into practice, and be able to put these techniques and use them and remind you, that these are your go-tos for difficult times. And so that's usually what couple, therapy can be for. But if a person does not want to do that, it is, again, back on you to make sure that you are taking that individual route to creating, mental wellness, and making sure that you are taking care of yourself first before you can take care of anyone. It's that whole motto, how are you going to fill someone else's cup if you don't, if your cup isn't filled, so or full. I do think it is one of those things where, people have to learn how to take care of each other. I think we get into this whole thing that, we have to, and I want to say, and piggyback off your last podcast, there was something that you guys said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but, it was in regards to being able to take care of yourself, but in a relationship. But my biggest thing is that we do have to take some ownership about taking care of each other when we are in
the person.
committed
true.
relationship.
Yeah.
That we don't do that enough. And I just think that's important. I don't think we talk about it enough, how it is our responsibility to make sure that our partners are okay. When we are in committed relationships, we don't have to say that, it's up to you to find happiness. Like that's, no, like you're in a relationship with someone, it is up to the both of you to foster that within each other. And I think that's important to, take away from this as well.
That just gave me the biggest aha moment, something that I didn't realize at all before, what you just said, Renee. And I thank you for that because it's just really shining a light on myself. So what you just described, I've done that. I've done that in my relationship. My partner, his mom is actually suffering with Alzheimer's. And so I've seen him grieving the loss of his mom. He's gone through that process. And I recognize now that I didn't show up how I could have shown up for him. I could have absolutely shown up better for him because I really just didn't know how. It was something that I hurt from because I saw him hurt. I was hurting for her because she's such a beautiful, beautiful person. And I recognize a lot of times I would just retreat, or I wouldn't just talk to him or ask him how he's doing or what I could do, although all those things were in my heart, and it didn't lead to the demise of the relationship, but I know it probably led to some hurt for him because he probably was expecting me to show up differently. So, just understanding that, and thank you for that revelation for me, but I really would like for you to, continue to talk a little bit more about the article and how you talk through some of that in the article.
So the article is more around the breakup. It's actually called Breakup Cake Up. And it was about the ingredients that I needed to rise from
Wow.
an unhealthy situation.
Clever.
Love that.
That's very clever. Break up, take up.
Yeah.
Ingredients. Okay.
But I will say, just in response to what you said, Dee, give yourself some grace around not showing up the way you felt like you needed to, because I think, again, diagnoses are hard when they're within our family members. Again, I can relate to the Alzheimer's because I had a grandmother who also had Alzheimer's, so I know that that is a difficult, time. But give yourself grace, because we only know, or we can only show up how we can, or do the best we can with what we have in those moments, So it's important for you to be able to forgive yourself. And I'll talk about that later. I think that's one of the most important things within a relationship is forgiveness. So we will get into that. But as far as the article, Breakup, Cake Up, that really was just like a bounce back for me after, the breakup. I was just saying to myself, what can I do? I love to write. And so I got on this platform where you can kind of write and create literature. And so it's very brief, and it's not a huge article or anything, but some of the things that, and I'm sorry I have to read because I don't remember all of it. This was 2020.
Oh, that's okay.
But some of the things that I thought were important to get yourself or pick yourself back up, or like I said, rise, use that analogy, rising from an unhealthy situation, was being able to acknowledge your part within the breakup, taking accountability for the things that you've done wrong, and owning your shit is what I said in the article. And knowing that giving unconditional love towards your partner and having the willingness to go through it, if that's what is desired, finding peace is important. And I found peace through, again, writing and painting and doing all those things, exploring, the passions, like writing and all that. I also talked about goal, digging, maybe setting some professional goals after, because what I realized that was lost in the relationship was like, COVID, you kind of D-Nice was DJing.
Yes.
We were cooking and doing all these things, but I was like, this is kind of getting old, After I was getting chubby, and I was like,
girl,
all of us gained like 10 pounds.
15.
Right. And so for me, I thought it was important to set some goals. I'm like, what am I doing? Again, I was out of work. So I'm like, okay, I got to find a job. Like at the time I wasn't licensed as a therapist. Even though I was doing social work in the hospital, I was not licensed. So setting up my, future to become licensed. And then my biggest thing was taking my power back. Like I felt like I had lost a lot of power within that relationship. And I felt like I had no control. My anxiety level was at 10. I was acting a fool. And so just gaining that power back was important to me, making sure that I felt like I was in control of myself, and therapy obviously was another thing. Getting back, getting my power back through knowing that I was a good person, that, these were things that happened. I didn't fail because we broke up, that was not looked at as a failure. So those were some of the things that I wrote in the article, just in regards to how to pick yourself back up after.
Those are very profound things. Let me just say that. And I want you to tell people where they can find this article, because I think, you just said some very key things.
Yeah.
It's a short article, but man, oh man, there's so many nuggets. I mean, the gold digging alone, right? You know, you can absolutely get stagnant within a relationship. And I remember hearing this, if you're not growing, you're dying. You know what I mean? Like you have to grow together. And sometimes I feel like communication is such a huge part of all that we talked about, right? Because in your situation, if we just allow ourselves to be vulnerable, I don't know why we feel like we have to put these walls up. Like I have no wall, right? And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I just feel like, you know what, if I'm with a person, I need to show them all the parts of me, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And I feel like we don't do that, right? Because we feel like, okay, we want to present a certain way to our partners, because also it kind of reflects on ourselves at the end of the day. It's really like, we might feel a certain way for ourselves and we don't want our partners to see that, right? So we have to put this kind of unknowingly, I think subconsciously, this face on. And I think it's more about ourselves even than that person. So yeah, I mentioned communication because that's a big one for me, but I know you have a few other things that you can share with our listeners on what are healthy ways to show up in our relationships.
So I think you guys had mentioned respect. Shauna, I don't know if maybe you could go over your 3.
Yeah, so mine was, my pillars are so respect. Yeah, I call them pillars for any relationship, not just love and romantic.
Yeah.
But trust, honesty, communication, friendship. Those are my 4.
And Dee, did you have your? I can't remember.
So I said mine was communication, safety, and we talked about what safety meant. And was it physical safety was a given for us, right? Like, but safety, feeling safe within the relationship. So emotional safety, just to know that that person is there for you. It makes you feel. So what we talked about then was trust could be a part of that, right? Because again, it's like I don't expect to have to go through my partner's phone, and I don't want to be in a relationship that someone makes me feel insecure to that level. Then that's someone that I don't need to be with, right? So.
Right. I'll read my list of important things that I feel should be
non-negotiables. Are these non-negotiables?
They're not non-negotiables, but
okay.
I think in order to create a healthy relationship, these are some of the things that you need. But I think the one thing that you mentioned, in all the things that you guys mentioned, some of them are on my list, obviously, but Dee, you mentioned emotional safety. What I realize is that everybody is not emotionally intelligent enough to provide emotional safety.
Girl. Girl. No.
So I just want to put that out there first. You have to have emotional intelligence in order to provide an emotionally safe, place.
Environment. Yeah.
You're gonna have to tell us about that. From a therapist perspective.
That is a whole nother topic.
That's a whole episode.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm still in a relationships 3.
Right. I know we could, or you guys can obviously continue this for the next couple of weeks. Talk about. But respect is obviously one of those things. Communication obviously is one of those things that you mentioned. Trust. Being able to agree to disagree. I think
that's underrated. That's a good one. Yeah. You ain't gonna agree on everything. You just
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand why it's so hard.
That's where respect comes into play. Don't you think? It's like, okay, I respect the fact that that's your opinion. And, and let's leave it at that. We just don't see eye to eye, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is people try to force you to agree or think like they do. And that's where the discord comes in.
Right.
But being able to just say, that's not how I feel, but I respect how you feel,
Right.
Yeah. And we talked about like having, arguments where you don't have to walk away on 10,
Right.
Like, and I think that plays into that, right? Which is a respect. It's kind of disagreeing in a respectful way. Like, I respect your opinion, but that's not mine,
Right. Right. Also, I talked a little bit about forgiveness earlier. I think being able to be forgiving in a relationship is so important, because we are all human. We are going to make mistakes. We are not perfect people. So being able to know, like, your partner may F up, you know, your partner may not be at their best every day, and still being able to show up for them or support them, you know, during those, you know, times where
Okay. They're
not at their best.
Wait. Okay. Forgiveness to what level? Like, on what level? Forgiveness. What are we forgiving?
See these details on this one.
I just need to understand, because, you know, I can forgive you for not, you know, forgive you to take out the trash.
We're not talking about the
I don't know, Dee,
non-negotiables.
what you're getting at, but
We're not talking about the
non-negotiables.
Are you talking about cheating?
Yeah, like, there are some non-negotiables when it comes to forgiveness.
I'm not even going to get into cheating.
Okay.
We're not doing that tonight. I don't even got the energy to talk about cheating.
That's a whole other, like,
right.
I just wanted to know what we forgiving.
You know,
yeah, no, we're not doing that tonight. You stay over there with that, D. Nope.
I'm just gonna sip my tea.
Yeah. But yes, obviously that is up to the person what they want to do in regards to somebody cheating. Yeah,
that's true.
Me personally, that is a non-negotiable for me. I don't got time for nobody to be stepping out on me.
Get it straight.
Which leads into commitment, which is why I'm not in a committed relationship right now. I am, you know, but being able
enjoying life.
Right. But being able to, you know, explain to your partner how committed you are is important. Like, if you're going to be in something, it is important for that person to know your level of commitment. You know, what are we doing here? You know, and so that was another thing that led to, you know, that breakup. It was like, we're going on 4 years, buddy. Like, what is the deal? Like, I'm not going to, you know, keep doing this forever. All right, so kindness, we talked a little bit about that is also important within a relationship, that we are just treating each other with love and respect and kindness, and because that will go a long way. Like, for me, I just know, like, as long as you're nice to me, like, I can kind of move through the difficult times, you know. But when people are nasty and mean within a relationship, when that's just a no-go.
Which also brings out, I feel like, the worst in you. One of the things you mentioned is you didn't show up the way you wanted to, right? But I also feel like when you're in a relationship where it's bringing out the worst in you, or let's just say any, which I call like toxic relationships, and those can be any type of relationships as well, you need to distance yourself from those people.
Yes,
you know?
absolutely. Being able to just like each other. You know, I think people don't explore that enough when dating. Like, you know, he might be fine or she may be beautiful, and that's the surface stuff. But do you get along with this person? Do you even like this person enough to like be committed to them? Or do you move further along in a relationship? And so looking at that in detail before, you know, you move forward. And the last thing is dependency. I think this is so important because we get very people, I'm not saying we, but people can be very dependent on each other in relationships. So having your own individuality and being able to take your space, and knowing that that's not doesn't have anything to do with the other person. Being able to you're clapping. Yeah, you're clapping, Dee. But that is one of the things that I didn't understand in my previous relationship. So that's one of the things I had to learn. So I'll put myself out there that I felt like I needed to be with this person all the time in order to for the love to be there. But and prior to that, it's weird because prior to that, like I'm Sagittarius, so I'm a free spirit. I love to be
independent woman.
Yes.
Wow.
And how that shifted when I got in a committed relationship was very surprising to myself. But you said that you were dealing with, one of the things you said is that you were dealing with
like you didn't feel secure, right? So here it is, you didn't feel secure in a lot of spaces, and you needed to feel secure within that, that he needed to be your anchor at the end of the day, right? Like, and he just was not providing that security for you. And that's why I think you probably felt like you were latching on more than you normally would.
Trying to hold on to something, but felt way better when I began to take space and do the things I needed to do for myself. And so that is a key to take away, is that that being codependent on people is not healthy. Being able to, take care of yourself outside of your partner's space and have your own life and do things, but then being able to come together and do great things as well is important, and fun and loving, and so that is the last thing.
I love it.
Yeah, those are great.
So what is this challenge that you guys do at the end of every one of your episodes?
Oh, the challenge.
Yes. My favorite part of the show, where we challenge our listeners and ourselves, really. It's not just about our listeners. We're on this journey together. Take one small step in whatever topic that we're covering, so last time for Father's Day, our Father's Day episode, we challenged people to do something special for their fathers, you know what I mean? To really, or a father, if it's not your own father, right? Or a father figure. So this week, why don't you, I know you have a lot of great advice for our listeners. Can you think of a challenge that would help people get a little further in their personal journey?
I know we've been talking about therapy and how to be better throughout this episode. So one of the things I would say is being able to, and here's why, because in our community we tend to sweep therapy under the rug. We don't, it's not, it's taboo.
It's taboo.
When we talk about therapy, that means there's something wrong, or we're crazy, or, and so one of the things I can challenge our listeners to do is to just inquire about therapy. Maybe it is just getting a consult, talking to someone, and just exploring the options for therapy, to see what that would look like, bringing your concerns or things that you may be struggling with to the table, and talking to a therapist just in a consult. It doesn't mean you have to commit to anything, just to see what it is that they can help you with. And then from there, see whether or not therapy is a good fit for you. So
I love that. And how can our listeners find you?
Your listeners can find me on psychologytoday.com. But obviously I am only licensed in the Connecticut area. So if you are seeking therapy and are looking to get one of those consults that I just mentioned, psychologytoday.com. All you have to do is put in your zip code, and a list of therapists in the area that you live in will pop up, and then you can pick and choose. You will see the people's faces and their credentials and what they specialize in, and then you can find your own therapist right on Psychology Today.
Absolutely. And I will say that I actually found my therapist recently through Psychology Today. And I find it to be very helpful, because you can set your filters and ask for something specific. So I think it's a great website, and I'm glad people can find you there, for those that are located in Connecticut. I just want to say thanks again for being with us today. Outside of our close friendship, you dropped so many jewels for our listeners, and this is exactly why we wanted to have you here with us. So really appreciate everything that you had to share.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope that this was beneficial to the listeners, and I'm just grateful to be able to practice and be able to help people, and that's my mission, and get better within myself too, because I can't be a good therapist if I'm not working on growing as well. So
amen.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Wow. That was an amazing conversation, and I hope that our listeners get what I got from that conversation with Renee. And again, if you are in the Connecticut area, please check her out on Psychology Today, Renee Howell. If you know the session is anything like what we got today, you will be blessed by it. So this was episode 107, Relationships 2. Thank you for co-labbing with us.
Thank you.
Bye. So Shauna, you already use therapy, so I don't know.
I
Should I be
am.
seeking
Yeah.
therapy?
You don't have a therapist? Really?
I don't. I